Let's talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new episode of the Square Circle Podcast. I am your host, Marie Shadows, and on this episode of the Square Circle Podcast, I am going to give you a very long podcast talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Cup, Wrestle Kingdom. These are the big events that I haven't covered yet, and this whole episode will be that to the best of my ability. I promise it won't go 2 hours, 3 hours. It's not going to do that. Mostly an hour. But there are just some thoughts that I want to get out. And normally, I will be doing podcast after podcast after podcast about the things that I love, the things that I enjoy. And I sort of realized that over the past couple of weeks, the internet wrestling community has definitely been just spewing out a lot of shit when it comes to their wrestling takes and not understanding either WrestleMania or what New Japan does or anything else. And they just want to say things for the sake of saying things. And when you've been on social media for a long time, like me, it kind of starts to affect what you want to cover and all the doubts that you have in your head about, are you even good enough? Are people even listening to you? And my whole entire content is about breaking down professional wrestling, breaking down the characters, the story, and getting you hyped as much as I am to be hyped about getting behind these characters, behind these stories, because again, professional wrestling is a way for us to escape reality for the 1 to 3 hours of whatever wrestling we're talking about, to have really groundbreaking discussions about the wrestling that we see, the wrestling that we observe. But it's mainly a back and forth battle of, this person is a game changer. This is not real wrestling. What is this? You got to go by numbers. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then it gets a little overwhelming when wrestlers themselves jump in on conversations that they really don't need to be in conversation about, especially when fans are concerned about the whole concept of where is the story or what's the story. And I can admit that I like wrestling matches that have a story. And some people want to be like, well, they don't need a story because they'll tell the story in the ring. Newsflash. Most wrestlers nowadays forget the art of telling a story in the ring. I can't even sit down to watch something and I'm like, I don't know where the story is because it is spot after spot after spot after spot. You know, if anyone ever goes back into my back catalog of podcast episodes, I would defend the whole concept of the fighting spirit, because when most of my content is New Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling embodies the fighting spirit and what it means to be having that fighting spirit. And it's basically that adrenaline rush that wrestlers feel when they're doing the spot after spot after spot and they're yelling in between taking turns or whatever move they're going to do next. And yes, I would admit that I will say that that is fighting spirit, and that used to get me hype. Now that I've seen it so many times, I'm just like, I can't keep telling my listeners like, oh, this wrestler had fighting spirit. This wrestler had fighting spirit. That's fighting spirit. Oh, you see them chopping each other? That's fighting spirit. Because after a while, it gets boring. The formula gets dull. And there's nothing new for me to really tell you guys anything when it comes to why you should watch this match. Now, just a little side note that there are 2 wrestling matches that indie wrestlers need to watch. And that is from the New Japan Cup, which is TJP versus Zack Sabre Jr. Now, this wasn't a tag team match, so it was TJP and Callum Newman versus Zack Sabre Jr. and Mikey Nichols. And when Zack Sabre Jr. and TJP ended up fighting each other, that was golden. Oh, and by the way, I'm still not a fan of Zack Sabre Jr., so you know, go watch his matches. I just don't like it. I can respect what he can do, but I just don't like him. I don't. And then the other one is definitely the Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson over in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, that was a really good, fun match that indie wrestlers should study. Now, do I want to break them down? Possibly at a later date. You guys can let me know if you want me to break it down. But I want to have fun breaking down the wrestling matches. That's why I have Tape Study Tuesday. That's why I do live streams where I watch wrestling matches and I break it down and tell you guys what was beautiful, what was not beautiful, and how to improve it and all that. My point being is that sometimes you can't always just go by, oh, let the story play out in the ring, because, like I said, most wrestlers nowadays forget how to do that, especially when you are an indie darling that hasn't learned to evolve your style, to sort of slow down, think about it, be methodical about it, bring some psychology into it. If you know you're fighting a wrestler who goes from 0 to 1,000 in running and speed, you take out their legs, you work on their legs, you create a submission so that way you can get a victory by tap out. Oh, you know that your opponent likes to do top rope moves or anything with their finisher being like a punching finisher or something to the effect. You work on a body part. When you work on the body part, it tells the fans that you are a technician. It tells the fans that you have studied your opponent. So now your opponent has to work overtime to make sure that you don't get the victory. And fans can appreciate that because there's story there. There's one wrestler trying to out-wrestle the other wrestler by taking away what the other wrestler is known for. So let's put that into an example, again, with the high flying. We all know that high flying consists of having speed, using the ropes, doing high-risk moves. And if the opponent wants to have a victory on that day that they are wrestling this high flyer, you take out their most important things, meaning their legs, if they are runners, their arms, if they're always trying to do different things, and you work on the body part. That's exactly what I mean by before. It might have been a little confusing. But working on the body part tells the fans that this is a match that has a story in it, because one wants to be better than the other. One wants to get the victory over the other. Let's take the recent example of Will Ospreay being in AEW. Will Ospreay just defeated his pal, his buddy, former, maybe current United Empire member Kyle Fletcher in that match that he had recently. And Danielson came out and they stared each other down. And then Ospreay cuts a promo and I don't know, something just seems really off. But the promo was okay. I just want to say that no one has to say that you are the feeling. You know, there's this meme that got started and then like died out very quickly about, you know, AEW has the feeling or bring the feeling back. And Ospreay goes and says that he is the feeling. And it's like, Ospreay would be a lot more smarter if he wants to be the feeling of AEW, be a lot more smarter in his matches rather than being reckless. Especially when he was facing Konosuke, that was a reckless move of having the brainbuster done and he getting a bruise where his kidney area is. Like, sir, wrestling is not about who can kill the other one and who could bring bruises in places that could cause internal injury. Wrestling is about who is the best, who could tap out who could get the pinfall, and not so much really damaging your opponent. You know, there's just something about it. So there's this divide that dream matches don't have to have stories. And there are some dream matches in this world that do not need to have story between the two to have a build-up. However, you guys have to have a plethora of accolades, accomplishments, career achievements, and all this kind of stuff to have that ability to not have the buildup between two big dream wrestlers. Danielson has done everything that he can in professional wrestling. Ospreay really hasn't done as much as Danielson. So if I'm going to be honest here, Danielson versus Ospreay is not a dream match. This is just a match that Danielson wants because Danielson is doing his last hurrah and wants to wrestle the guys he never got to wrestle, which is very noble. And it's like, I'll tip my hat to that you want to go wrestle the guys you never wrestled. But there needs to be a story other than who is the best wrestler. Is it Ospreay or is it Danielson? Because you can't just leave it to the fans to try and get the hype going. There has to be video packages, really good promos between one another. I don't even know if we're going to get a promo by Danielson. But the idea is that Ospreay is not a big enough star to just let matches happen and then bam, it's going to be golden and stuff. And by the way, in my last podcast episode talking about Ospreay, I do believe that he wrestles now for that 5-star rating that Meltzer gives. If you guys did not check out what is circulating on Twitter about Meltzer saying that Ospreay is way better than Cody Rhodes in terms of charisma, Uncle Dave does not believe that shit. No one believes that shit. I'm going to say right now that Cody Rhodes is way more over than Ospreay. As much as I respect what Ospreay does, and by the way, none of this is a personal attack on anybody. This is just observation and talking about wrestling as being very observant. But Cody Rhodes makes you feel. Cody Rhodes has you crying. Cody Rhodes has you cheering. Cody Rhodes has you booing. Cody Rhodes has you like, bro, get the fuck out, go home for a little bit. You know, Cody Rhodes has everything a wrestler could ever hope to create, that package. Cody Rhodes has that connection with the fans. Ospreay doesn't have that connection with the fans, not just yet. Now he's giving us more of his personality, which is an okay thing. Me, I'm just like, don't give us too much, because then it might just go the wrong way rather than the right way. And, you know, for Uncle Dave to put over Ospreay, it just tells me that, like, somebody is working for the 5 stars, the 6 stars, the 7 stars that Uncle Dave gives out, rather than focusing on the wrestling and telling a good story. Because you really don't need ratings when none of that actually matters. And it might feel good. It might get the dopamine rush and stuff. But to be honest, like, fan favorite matches are very subjective, right? I could like something, you might not like my pick. And then if you like something, I might not like it, right? It's all about being subjective, right? But what I really want to get at is that Uncle Dave does not pay any of these wrestlers that he gives out the 5-star rating to, or the 6-star or the 7-star rating to, right? So why are you busting your ass for getting a star rating where it's not going to increase your revenue, it's not going to increase your paycheck, and Uncle Dave's signature is not going to be on that check alongside the boss that's paying you? So why are wrestlers working so hard overtime to cash in these star ratings when the equivalency, it's not an extra dime in your pocket? The only way that you get that extra dime is if you do what the boss tells you to do and sell that merchandise and maybe start a live stream to get extra cash. But you cannot cash in those star ratings that Uncle Dave gives you. So I don't understand why Ospreay wants to have matches that are just strictly for the stars, because that's how it feels now. That's how it feels looking at his catalog, especially him going to AEW. Anyway, I might have drifted away from the point, but the point is that you have to know the difference between a dream match versus a match that somebody wants. And if there is no story buildup, it's not going to be as great as it should be. And the reception is only going to be within the bubble that you cater to. And that's going to hurt you in the long run. because as much as we say that like you shouldn't really get opinions from everybody, maybe this time around you should get opinions from everybody, because then you could pick out the ones that care, the ones that took the time to actually give you constructive criticism, and the ones that really want to see you do well, right? They're like, oh, this is good. This is good. I just didn't feel like this part, wasn't that great. It was a little too slow for my liking, or, I got scared when this move was applied because I thought you really hurt your neck or something. There are fans out there that want to see the best for wrestlers, that want to be involved in the process of things, and fans will tell you like it is. If you just cater to the bubble that is AEW, all you're going to get is people that will just kiss your ass, to put it nicely, because I was thinking of something way more vulgar, but, that niche of a bubble will just kiss your ass and not bring you down to reality that if you want to stay in the business long term, you do things a little bit different, especially when you go to a company knowing that they have a list of injury-prone wrestlers, and you're like, oh yeah, let me sign here because I have so much money from them. And you're not considering, is this truly the right place to be? It's like all sense and common sense got thrown out the window once Tony Khan was like, I could pay you X amount of money. I need you to come here. I don't want you to go to the competition. You got to come here. That's it. That's all. And it's like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money. You should always go with the one that gives you a lot of money. However, you also have to make sure that you're going to be healthy. You also have to make sure that you have a story for the wrestler, meaning that like it's short-term and long-term visions of the story. And you just got to make sure that everybody is a professional, because in wrestling, people are getting injured way too often. We don't hear it as much in WWE. There might be like slight freak injuries, but AEW has like a longer list. Now, stories are important because it gets you invested, it gets you motivated. And this whole entire thing, even though I know I said I started off with we're going to talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, but stories is going to be like the overarching topic in this whole entire thing. And I hope that I stay on track because I am doing this just off the top of my mind. Maybe because of the fact that I put so much pressure on myself to make sure that I have the perfect episodes, I have the perfect things to say, whether you agree with it or not agree with it, or you want to agree to disagree. Even though my takes are not always perfect, my stuff is not always perfect, but it always makes sense. So I should say it that way. But regardless, like I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that I give the entire podcast community, the entire wrestling community, the quality podcast episodes, live stream episodes, interviews to be top notch, that top shelf, because I will not accept anything less. So again, if you wonder why I take so long now to bring stuff to the forefront of my whole entire content creation, is because I want to focus on quality. I want quantity. Everybody wants quantity because then you could go around and tweet out saying, hey, I did all this in the span of X amount of time. And people are like, oh my God, that's so much work. But is it quality though? Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I haven't talked about Wrestle Kingdom. I haven't talked about the New Japan Cup yet. I haven't talked about in depth what it truly means that New Japan Pro Wrestling is without their biggest stars. And I didn't know how much that was going to affect me and the way that I watch New Japan Pro Wrestling now. And I know that there is a lot of things for New Japan Pro Wrestling to do. I'm not asking them to do all these things overnight. I'm not asking them to produce the next Tanahashi, the next Okada, the next Will Ospreay, the next Jay White, like all these big stars that have left. The next Tama Tonga, which there could be no other Tama Tonga. Love that guy. it's one of those, like, I know that they are not going to create stars overnight. They have a good batch of young stars that can blossom into really, really great superstars of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I just felt like this New Japan Cup wasn't as exciting to me as the other ones were. And I think that's just because now they're scrambling and now they have to just pick up the pieces. And I will be at the side of New Japan Pro Wrestling along the way because I fucking love this company. I really do. There's just something special about New Japan Pro Wrestling, the people that are there, the friendships I've made, and it's just really cool to see what happens now. And I sort of had to take maybe a step back to be like, well, if their biggest stars are out, these are the times to shine. And boy, oh boy, did they shine for this semifinals of the New Japan Cup. The semifinals for today of March 18th, 2024 was Evil versus Tsuji. And then we had Sonata versus Goto. And spoiler alert, in the finals, which is going to be held on March 20th, 2024, we are going to get Tsuji versus Goto. Now, I'm excited for this because even though we had the unfortunate news coming out that David Finlay had to forfeit his spot in the New Japan Cup and completely drop out due to health concern reasons, and on commentary they had mentioned it was something with his vision, here at the Square Circle Podcast, myself, Marie Shadows, wants to extend a warm get well wishes soon to David Finlay because David Finlay was my pick to win the whole entire New Japan Cup. And I do want to take the moment to apologize to my fans out there that I usually have the podcast episodes lined up of like, I have to do a preview and then, we'll talk about the tournament as it goes, but I didn't do that this time. However, if you were with me on live stream on twitch.tv/Marie_Shadows, you guys would have been there live and been in the chat, and I would have went over who I wanted to win the New Japan Cup and talk about the New Japan Cup and draw on the bracket. And that way you guys can definitely be along for the ride with me. Now, I will be talking about the New Japan Cup after everything is done. So I'll still mention like what I did, my thought process and stuff like that. But I would also love the fact that you guys tune into these audio podcast episodes, including some of the video podcast episodes. I would also love to see you in my chat over on Twitch and over on Kick. I would love to see you guys there. So I am happy that we have a finals of Goto versus Tsuji. And of course, if Evil was going to lose the match, why not go out in a big, fancy, super overbooked Yota Tsuji versus Evil? Man, the match was so overbooked. And I was just like, okay, I'm a little done with this, guys. Like, come on, hurry it up. Like, I understand why they did it, but it was still like, all right, guys, I get it. Enough. So Evil does not advance, which is very amazing. And the fact that we have Tsuji versus Goto in the finals is a booking decision that is amazing. However, I will say that people who want to tune in for New Japan Pro Wrestling will curse up a storm about House of Torture and be like, I'm going to cancel my New Japan World subscription because of House of Torture, and House of Torture is so bad, and House of Torture is annoying. And these are the same fans that came back and celebrated the fact that we have Goto versus Tsuji in the finals. And it's like, if you're not going to be at the side of New Japan Pro Wrestling at every single up and down, then what is the point of tweeting that you're happy now versus you hate it just because of House of Torture, when there are other wrestlers putting their bodies on the line and giving their time and energy to entertain us across the water? who can access New Japan Pro Wrestling via a subscription and watch whenever we want to watch on demand. Like, I don't understand that. Now, I don't want to get into the conversation of like, if you don't like it, don't watch it, because I'm always of the belief that you should try to understand the company and the wrestlers and the psychology that goes behind making these decisions and stuff like that, and try to understand it from their point of view rather than just being like, get out of the fandom, because New Japan Pro Wrestling does give us a lot of twists and turns. Sometimes it might be predictable, sometimes it might not be predictable. But when you understand why House of Torture overbooks their stuff and continues to do all of their shenanigans, you have to look at where they do it. And I keep saying this on every single podcast episode when I talk about House of Torture. Depending on where they're at in Japan, it dictates what they're going to do and the shenanigans that are going to happen in that match. So if they're in the main areas of Japan, so like Tokyo, Kyoto, and any like big city type of prefecture, then their shenanigans are not going to be as overwhelming, because those are smart fans in Japan about professional wrestling. They keep everything kayfabe. Now, if House of Torture and New Japan Pro Wrestling go out to the suburbs of Japan, so like Sendai and anywhere else in that area and a little bit further, those wrestling fans are not going to understand wrestling as much as the fans in Tokyo and Kyoto and city-like. So in the suburbs, House of Torture basically plots a lot more shenanigans in their matches when it comes to the suburban area of Japan. And if you do not understand that, then you cannot complain about it on social media. I just keep explaining the same things over and over. There's a reason why House of Torture does what they do. And then people want to threaten New Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan World with like, oh, I'm going to cancel my subscription. Well, then cancel it, because no one's stopping you. No one really is. You can accept that we have House of Torture. House of Torture is probably not going to change. House of Torture brings in so much money for New Japan Pro Wrestling by Japanese standards, not even American standards, because they're two different things. You have to remember that too, that you cannot apply your American ideals onto Japanese culture. You can't do that. The moment you accept that you can't do that, the happier you'll be, and then the Japanese culture and people will be a lot more respectful towards you. So House of Torture really does sell their stuff, like the merchandise and everything like that. You do see in the crowd that people bring signs and the towels of House of Torture members. And yeah, you can definitely make the argument that sometimes the crowd just goes silent, and the crowd really does give their opinion when House of Torture is out there and they are doing their shenanigans. But it still goes to show you that they know what they're doing, and you should be there along for the ride. I have accepted House of Torture for the longest, and that's after not listening to Kevin Kelly for a while, because when Kevin Kelly was on commentary and when House of Torture was out there, it was just so bad. So now that he's not there, and I mainly listen to the Japanese commentators just because I want to learn Japanese and get my ears primed for listening to Japanese speak. And when I start taking Japanese classes, it'll be a lot more easier for me to like understand and help out if I can. So yeah, I accepted House of Torture, and I basically like to hear the Japanese commentators too, because they are super hyped whenever something goes down. Let's get back to talking about the New Japan Cup. So for those that end up losing the New Japan Cup because it is decided by a single fall, the moment that you lose against your opponent, you get to do the multi-man tag team matches. And the multi-man tag team matches are just abundantly rotational, and there's not really too much to it. We're not really doing too much angles with it. There might be some angles here and there, some stories here and there. They're all interconnected. It is getting overwhelming, And I can hear the frustration in the wrestler voices. And I don't even think it's because of the schedule. It's more about who they're facing. And I know that they have to scramble to make these matches. They have to scramble to make sure that everybody is healthy. And then, like I said, with the news of David Finlay suddenly withdrawing from the New Japan Cup and everything. So it just makes things a little bit more like on edge. And what I really want to touch on is United Empire. I was really thinking of making a whole episode dedicated to the United Empire because that is one of my favorite teams that have arose or arise in Japan, and we just celebrated them being together for 4 years. And it's United Empire and Bullet Club are my two favorite teams that I enjoy and that I root for and boo against and tell you guys everything that you need to know about these teams, including like whoever they go against. And Bullet Club has definitely recovered and definitely have become top of the mountain. United Empire, I feel so incredibly bad for. Again, my assessment of the United Empire is not a personal attack on any one of the members. It is observation and it is critique with constructive criticism and feedback because I really do think that United Empire can give Bullet Club a run for their money, LIJ a run for their money, Chaos, if they're still together, because Okada was the leader. I don't understand how that works, but Chaos a run for their money. And who else am I missing? I can't say Hantai a run for their money. They could give God a run for their money. But all in all, United Empire is a very dangerous team that was put together, and you would think that none of these guys would work together as well as they do. While they all complement each other, they all bring up their weaknesses and their strengths when they are put together and they fight together as a unit. It's all about unity. My thing is that when United Empire got created, I don't think that they knew in the beginning how big United Empire was going to be or if it was going to work, because sometimes when wrestlers create groups, it doesn't always work out. But United Empire works out fantastic. But my main problem looking back at everything is that there was no established sort of leader. And the one that made it is Will Ospreay. And I can understand that Will Ospreay never wanted that mantle of having the tag of leader attached to him. Not everyone could be a leader. Not everyone feels that they are a leader, and not everyone wants that responsibility. And I totally get it. That's why you'll have your buddies do as they please. And it worked for a little bit because it was in a confines of it working. And they all were a great rotation. It did not matter who you had on the team. They all showed up and they all showed out. And they were the talk of the town like always. Now, at that time, they really didn't need a leader per se to do the promo work for all the guys. To have the matches and like dictate what's going to happen, who's going to do this, and all this kind of stuff. Like, it wasn't micromanaged. And so in the beginning, everything just worked really, really well together. They really didn't need a leader. And then they incorporated Lord Gideon Grey, which I like that dude. That dude is mad cool. Where the fuck has he been for the past, 2 years? I don't remember the last time he was in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but we definitely need him back to be part of the United Empire. I really enjoyed what Gideon Grey was doing. Gideon Grey was acting as the godfather, so to speak, of the United Empire, the one that has all the money, the brains behind the operation, and, that'll be an easier way for Will Ospreay to retreat to the back. But as much as everything was going great, there were bumps in the road that I personally did not like. And I know a lot of other people didn't like either. But the biggest thing was that the first two to leave United Empire. And I say leave because just because New Japan Pro Wrestling isn't going to sign you right away. And I totally understand that sometimes people want that security. People want that guaranteed money and not have to feel like they have to get bookings or they have to really talk to New Japan management to be like, hey, we need to be on the next tour because we got these bills coming up and we need some help. And this might end up having me look like I don't really care, but I really do care. There are other ways to formulate that supplement income if you wanted to go the live streaming route, if you wanted to get like a really decent laptop to take it with you on the go, or even use your phone, because in today's day and age, everyone is buying an iPhone. Everyone is buying Samsung. People are buying other Android phones as well, but Samsung and iPhones are in the market and they're at least $1,000 to get. So you have the hardware to want to go live and go down the avenue of being a content creator and letting fans in on what kind of person you are, what kind of wrestler you are, what are your hobbies, what do you like, what do you don't like. And you can live stream your life from your phone and get an extra income and just show that for New Japan Pro Wrestling, like, hey, we are way much more than just wrestlers. You know, we could do other things too. We could make all this content. You could pair us up with Yano. You could pair us up with Shingo or Hiromu or the Great Okan and any one of those guys that have a YouTube channel in Japan, and cross with the audiences of Japan, New Zealand, UK, and United States, and everywhere else around the world. You'll get that supplement income until New Japan is like, yes, we could sign you guys. But just to quickly jump off the ship after having a wonderful, brilliant match against Will Ospreay in the G1, which was amazing. Those matches were amazing. And just to suddenly just go appear on AEW in a suit to drop the news that you guys are all elite because you signed the contract, you got the bag, and you don't have to worry anymore about it. And it's like everything in life is about a hustle. Everything in life is about getting some type of bag. Everything in life is about achieving your goals, achieving your dreams, going the journey to do so. And I understand that sometimes it can get a little daunting, especially if you don't understand where your next payment is going to come from. I totally get it. I really do. But like I said, there are other ways to get creative about filling the void that your favorite company that you enjoy doesn't want to have you at the moment. There are different ways to go about it, to wait for it. And sometimes waiting can be a risk of its own, but just to up and leave and nobody knew. Trust me, I have the source on that nobody knew this was going to happen. And it just happened that way in AEW. And that was the first, like, you lost my trust just because of that action. And other fans may feel different. I don't know. I didn't really ask any other fans, but you're not supposed to lose the trust of the fans, knowing that they pay a monthly subscription to watch you wrestle because they don't have the means or the funds or the way to go live in Japan like a Japanese citizen to buy a ticket and watch you there live, if that makes any sense. So our ticket is through the NJPW World subscription at 999 yen a month. That is our ticket to watch you there every single week, every single tour. And I get it. If they're not going to book you, I totally understand that. It's a business and the business is going to keep running. But the point remains is that because I have this ticket that I pay in advance to see you wrestle, to see you grow, to see you smile, to see you improve as a professional wrestler, and then I'm no longer going to see you there, and I have to turn to cable or some other means to watch you on a different company. Now, People might say that, well, you do that with WWE. Yeah, I do that with WWE. But it's the idea of that I was already with you along for the ride for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And then all of a sudden you jump to go to somewhere else because they give you the bag, and that's it. You just want to go to a different company because you can get the bag, and it's like, well, how much did you really care? You know, money comes and goes. Money dictates a lot of the things in life, but friendships, achievements, the emotional ride that fans go with you through is forever, and it's a lot more deeper than just money. If the world was not so reliant on money, then things would be a lot more different. I totally understand that too. If the world was not so reliant on money, and if we did not give money the power that it has, we will all be happier. We will all be way better off. And we would definitely be treating each other with respect and dignity if money was not so highly looked upon and so powerful in society. So that is one thing that has broken my trust with the United Empire. The second thing that has broken my trust with the United Empire is the way that Ospreay left. And I think that left a bad taste in New Japan's mouth, but New Japan is never going to tell us. But I honestly do think so, because he was not booked on the little mini tour that led up to the Dog Pound match, which I'm going to get into. So Ospreay did not know that he can negotiate his contract early and then announce it to the world way earlier than his contract expiration date. First of all, sir, don't listen to stupid agents that tell you that you are able to do that. Like, that should not even be a thing. To me, that's considered poaching, and nobody wants to admit it. I will still admit it, that Tony Khan poaches these talents. And yet then he was saying that Rossi was trying to poach talent, and Rossi was trying to do this, and now Rossi is no longer the owner of Stardom, who created Stardom, and is somehow no longer the owner. Makes no sense. And you guys know that TK is going to poach those women wrestlers as well too, right? Like, this partnership between AEW and Stardom now is going to be a very bad thing, because Tony Khan likes to poach people, don't understand how he's poaching people. And then when someone like me or others in the community pointed out of like, this is how he's poaching people, people get upset. And I know you guys can say that, well, poaching happens all the time in sports and stuff. That's sports. This is wrestling. Totally two different things. Because in the sports world, they can't go everywhere. They're still going to be in the same sport. But in wrestling, you can like go from company to company to company, and then you could also go into UFC. A basketball player is not going to go into baseball the same way that baseball is not going to go into football. Like, those athletes are going to stay within the sports niche that they are in, and they can go from team to team to team, and poaching can happen that way. But when poaching happens in professional wrestling, it's a little bit different, because you are enticing them with a lot more money for whatever you're gonna give them in benefits that may be like better than where they're currently at. And I totally get it. You know, New Japan Pro Wrestling is recovering from a lot of things. They're recovering from COVID. They're recovering from the earthquake. And sometimes, you know, they may not have the amount of money to pay everybody. However, that does not mean you announce that you're going to be leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling way earlier than your expected contract date when it's done, and then want everyone to be happy for you. Because then what does that leave for the United Empire? It just feels like you just did something, you got people together, and you just want to peace out. And no one's going to know that you peaced out. It's like those people in the parties, when people have parties and they come in and they're like, hey, what's up, man? It's good to see you. You see them the one time, and then like when they want to make their exit, they start talking about stuff, and then like they leave, but you don't know when they left. It's like that. That's how that kind of falls into that. I didn't like it because Will Ospreay is the backbone of the United Empire. All those cool photo shoots of the guys in suits, beautiful. Everything that was ever done, the storytelling, the aggression, everything that made you fall in love with the United Empire, it's because of Will Ospreay and everybody doing what they do best and pulling everyone in and bringing us along for the ride. And then the main person that never wanted to be called a leader is the one that goes and jumps ship. And it's like, sir, you created something, you built something, and then you're going to go way earlier to another fucking company that is going to forget about you in 3 weeks or so. Because his AEW run right now is facing a bunch of high-profile wrestlers. And then when that's done, what's next? Because he may or may not get the AEW championship title. But seriously, what is next after he beats everybody on the list? There's absolutely nothing else for him to do in AEW once that happens and once we get there. And for him to say that he's still going to have the ability to wrestle in New Japan Pro Wrestling, I don't think so. I don't know, but I feel like that's a no. Everyone that says they have the ability to wrestle in New Japan Pro Wrestling after they jump ship to AEW, I don't see it happening at all, because it's about how you go about it, how you negotiate to jump ship to AEW without burning a bridge. So I felt some type of way when Ospreay was going to go over to AEW, and he might not think twice about it because he's happy for him and doing what's best for him and his family, and I totally get that. But again, it's the how you did it, sir. So that just leaves like a broken United Empire, and I felt extremely bad that when we were on the road to the new beginning and we were having United Empire versus Bullet Club. Like, I've been wanting United Empire versus Bullet Club for the longest. And when I get it, it is a rush version of what could have been a really great build-up, a really great story, but they had to rush it. And even as they rushed it, it was decent. It was really decent. What I really didn't like was that Ospreay was sitting at home doing nothing, having upcoming matches over in the UK because he was going to be permanently signed to AEW, but essentially doing nothing while his boys were getting beat down at the beatdown at the beatdown. And then you have to listen to David Finlay say all these things because Ospreay wasn't there, and really calling for Ospreay and being like, where are you? Where are you for your boys? And that hurt because it's like your buddies, the guys you recruited because you felt like they needed a home. You felt like they were bigger and had all this potential that New Japan didn't just see yet, especially New Japan management, based on the booking that some of these guys were having. Ospreay brought them all together, brought them into the team, and then your final week, you're not even going to be there for your boys that keep getting beat down by Bullet Club? What? So again, another trust broken for the United Empire, for myself. And it was really, really sad. And then finally Ospreay comes back, and as if like nothing ever fucking happened. Like, I would have been so pissed at him as a wrestler for the story, or like a manager or something if I was there, but for the story that, like, sir, you weren't here, so we should just sacrifice your ass and peace out. Because how do you just leave your boys to get beaten up by Bullet Club and nothing at all? No video package sent, no social media posts, no nothing. Not even showing up because you want to show up and you can't show up because you work for the company. Just because you're not booked on the tour doesn't mean you can't show up in support of your boys. You know, they could have made some storyline out of it, but I would have been pissed that you show up on the last day. We're going to have this cage match that New Japan Pro Wrestling never had a cage match ever. So this is the first time that they're having a cage match. and this is the time when you show up and want to be on our side to fight Bullet Club, sure, we'll let, be water under the bridge, but, that trust is gone. And that's another thing that I didn't like, is that how it happened. It's the concept of how it happened. Loyalty goes a long way in this business. And that's not someone that's loyal. If they're willing to sign ahead of time, announce it ahead of time, and not plan accordingly because of whatever the fuck. Like, there's a reason why I go so hard on wanting companies to have writers, wanting companies to have a showrunner, because when something like that happens, you have to control it, and you have to make sure that there is continuity and there is consistency and there is a line of common sense. Because David Finlay was there day in and day out with his boys to help promote this cage match that was happening at the pay-per-view for New Japan Pro Wrestling, while Ospreay showed up the one time, had the cage match, that's it. By the way, the cage match was very fucking brutal, okay? I have never witnessed, well, maybe I have with like Hell in a Cell for like WWE, but for New Japan standards, this was a bloody war. And Hinare scared the shit out of me, because this motherfucker, I know that he has the warrior blood running through his veins, okay? Because he is a 100% Maori and he is a tribal chief, okay? A true tribal chief. So if anyone ever asks me who I acknowledge as my tribal chief, it is Aaron Hinare of the United Empire. I will always acknowledge that dude. But this motherfucker scared the shit out of me because he was legit hurt. He split the back of his head open and real blood fucking gushed out and everything, and everybody was fucking scared. It was like, oh my God, this guy is still wrestling while blood is gushing out of his head. It's all real and legit. And continues to still fight in this match. And then when everything is all said and done, they finally take him to the hospital, and he's been out for a while because, man, I would have been like, sir, you are not going back to wrestle anytime soon. You're going to enjoy your little vacation. You're going to be okay. And luckily he is okay. So he is healing perfectly fine from that dog pound cage match. I would like to note that the dog pound cage match did go on a little too long. Like, I am not a fan of wrestlers ripping up the ring for whatever the fuck reason. And when they did that, I was like, you guys are going on a little too long. Like, that should never happen. But they really wanted to make a point, and they really wanted to really drive the point home that Ospreay is not going to be here again. So that way David Finlay can continue to say that he ran Jay White out of town, and he also ran Ospreay out of town. I also didn't like the fact that at Wrestle Kingdom, it was a triple threat match for the Global Heavyweight Championship title that had David Finlay versus Moxley versus Will Ospreay, and how Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley created a team to beat up David Finlay for 5 minutes, and then it was a free-for-all for all of them. But I'm very happy that David Finlay is the first ever Global Heavyweight Champion of New Japan Pro Wrestling. That is an IWGP looked upon title. It is a legit title. Now Nick Nemeth has that title, and David Finlay does not get the flowers that he deserves. And other things I want to touch on too is that I just want everything to have consistency. I want everything to have a purpose. Maybe not everything, because you can have like throwaway matches that are just throwaway matches, filler matches. I just don't want a lot of filler matches. I want matches where they have a purpose, where they have a feel-good story, so that way I could get back into telling you how great of a story these guys create and why you should be hyped for it. And I think that New Japan Pro Wrestling does a wonderful job with that. And they're going to get the ball rolling. And I know that it's going to be coming up soon about New Japan Pro Wrestling doing amazing things. I just didn't know how to get my thoughts out. And this might be a rant. It might be whatever it is. But I've been wanting to talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling for the longest, because sometimes I want to know if you guys want to hear me talk about New Japan the way that I talk about it. the love that I have about New Japan Pro Wrestling, about these guys. And I really did care about the New Japan Cup because I wanted David Finlay to win. And David Finlay now does really good methodical matches where it's like I'm expecting to see his matches. I want to see his matches. The same way that I love watching Clark Connors and Dan Maloney tear the shit up in New Japan Pro Wrestling as a junior tag team. And I love seeing the team of Hikuleo and ELP. It's doing really well. And I love the fact that we have Jungle Boy, aka Jack Perry, in New Japan Pro Wrestling 2 in House of Torture, because now we can finally see what kind of athlete and wrestler Jack Perry is. Because in AEW, everyone gets suffocated in AEW because there's so many stuff that's going on, so many wrestlers, everything. AEW doesn't know how to let anything breathe. So now that New Japan Pro Wrestling allows things to breathe, you can appreciate Jack Perry just a little bit more. And yeah, this whole thing was just like, how do I get my thoughts out on New Japan Pro Wrestling? I love New Japan Pro Wrestling. One day I will work for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's going to happen. I don't know in what capacity, but I want to work with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I want to work with the wrestlers. I want to make sure that the wrestlers are being able to tell their story to the best of their ability. I want to be able to lead them and fight for them and advocate for them, because it's really horrible that Jeff Cobb could have been our New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Champion and defeated Zack Sabre Jr. because how is Zack fighting against Jeff Cobb? It is a total weight difference, total strength difference, and it does not matter how much submission you put on Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb is a thick-ass man. Like, he's thick, bulky, muscular. He's the fucking tank of the United Empire, and you're having him lose to Zack Sabre Jr. Makes no sense. I need Jeff Cobb to be a champion. I need Hinari to be a champion. I need everyone else to be champions and have wonderful stories. And I need New Japan Pro Wrestling to probably retire some belts, make some new belts, make some new stories. And they are doing it. And like I said, I don't expect anything to happen overnight. These are just thoughts that I kept in my head, and I haven't been able to give them to you in single podcast episode forms. And that's on me. And I take that responsibility, and I apologize for that. Normally, I would have episodes dedicated to a specific New Japan topic, but now I'm thinking about what's a better way to approach it, and doing 1 hour or more isn't the best way to go about it, and I'm not going to subject to you guys for an hour or more for my podcast talks. I, again, just didn't know what could have been interesting to talk about and get my reactions to it, because I am very passionate about New Japan Pro Wrestling. I also think part of me is still trying to find my community, because it felt great 3 years ago, and I don't know where my community is at. And I would love if you guys can take the time, everyone who has listened to this, to go follow the Reddit page that I made. I made a Reddit page. It's based on my name, Marie Shadows, and that's a place where we can discuss my podcast episodes. We could have Q&A. We could definitely support each other, and a lot more. We could have posts where people can post up discussion points, discussion topics, and I really want to make a community, a really nice community. I do have a Discord as well, but I think I want to just have a Discord, but also have a Reddit as well, and use that. For some reason, in the month of March, I'm always either making something new or reviving something. And there are certain things in social media that I want to basically make an awesome community with. And I think Reddit is the way to go, because eventually I'm going to hop off of TikTok and not have a TikTok anymore. So if I do any type of shorts, any type of short form content, it will be on that Reddit and or the YouTube channel. But yeah, I don't, there's a lot of things that I have planned. In the description for this episode, I will leave all the links for you to come and support me. And I think I should do a full-blown press release on my newsletter, the Square Circle Society, and that link will be in the description because we just hit 1 hour and I don't want to take up any more of your time. But I feel better getting all of this out because I have not been able to really talk about it because I just kept it to myself. I really wanted to see how long things will be playing out with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I really want them to go above and beyond because New Japan Pro Wrestling is special. There is a special connection I have with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if I could ever articulate it to a very well thought out little message, but it's special. And I want to keep that going because I love doing that for my content. I love basically breaking down professional wrestling matches. And if you guys ever get the chance to go back into my catalog and listen to how I do things, how I talk about stuff, you'll see that the passion is there. The passion is always going to be there. And so I just want to bring it to everybody into the 5th season. I think what I'm having a really hard time to wrap my brain around is that we're 5 seasons in. 5 seasons of the Square Circle podcast. So I sort of want to not go as fast as I did for seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 and see what I can do in season 5. See something new, do something new. And by the way, I know we are going into WrestleMania season and I probably should have led off with this in the beginning, but if you made it this far, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know we're going into WrestleMania season. This is exclusive for you guys because I have yet to really tell anyone else. And I was really thinking about not telling anyone else. But you guys have followed me for 5 seasons, whether you are here since day 1, you come in from time to time, you're casual, you peek in, you follow me on Spotify and everywhere else around the social media world. You visit me in live streams and everything like that. So here is the executive decision because I am the owner and the creator of the Square Circle podcast. So by my decision, here is an exclusive for you guys. I, like everyone else in the podcast community that talks about professional wrestling and talks about WWE and everything else, I had applied for WrestleMania press passes for WrestleMania 40 down in Philly. It's not that far from me. And so I applied. I waited, and just like everybody that got the same response, not the same response, but the same email, depending on what it is, on March 8th. And so we applied, and we did not get press passes for WrestleMania 40, which is okay. I have come to the terms of not going to WrestleMania 40, but that's all right. Every single WrestleMania, I have always thrown a party. And hopefully I could throw a party this time around and definitely give you guys a podcast talk about the show and everything like that. So next time I am going to be on this journey of building up and networking with everybody in WWE, networking with everybody in the wrestling world, in MLW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Indies, and doing the work and putting the work in. And maybe that's what I need to do to get better. Because again, like I said, this is season 5 of the Square Circle podcast. Everything that I do are other extensions of the podcast. So there's a lot more content to consume. But part of me is like, I need to grow a little bit more. And I have each and every one of you by my side. And I have each and every one of you rooting for me. And even my haters, they are also probably rooting for me as well. But, I just want to take the moment to say thank you to everyone. And I want to say, just continue to follow me and I will give you guys high fives. If I see you online and we interact, you get a high five from me. And it is just wonderful to get my thoughts out on a podcast episode about New Japan Pro Wrestling, something that I love. And the internet wrestling community can stop being annoying with their takes and think that they know everything when they don't. I would like most people in the IWC to start try to work in wrestling to start and see how it is, because they act like they know, but they really don't know. And I do want to say thank you to everyone that has been on my creative journey. And if you guys don't know, we are doing streams on Kick Streaming, where I want to try and get into the KCIP, which is the Kick Creator Incentive Program. And they will pay me X amount of money for the X amount of hours that I stream. So if you guys can tell a friend, let them know that Marie Shadows has some awesome goals in the making, and she wants you to be a part of it with her. Again, ladies and gentlemen, all of this will be down in the description below, and I can't wait to see you on a future live stream, and I can't wait to see you on social media, in the Reddit, in the Discord, everywhere, anywhere. I really want to feel like I have a community. That's all. And I am being vulnerable with you guys just because I know that if the transparency is there, then I just accept loyalty. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'd rather be transparent, a little bit of vulnerability, and let you guys know that I am loyal to you guys, and it's amazing what we can create in 5 years and everything that I have done, and you guys seen it, and I hope to have you guys with me for the rest of the ride. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this long podcast episode. I love you guys. You've been listening to an episode of the Square Circle Podcast. I am your host, Marie Shadows, and I'll see you guys on the next one.